Brigitte Bardot pulled Alain Delon onto the terrace and whispered the question that would define both their careers. Choose me or your career. You can't have both. August 1962. Saturday night bleeding into Sunday morning. Bardot's villa perched above the Mediterranean like a jewel, lights spilling across manicured gardens, champagne flowing like water, 100 of France's most beautiful people pretending not to watch the most beautiful too. The party had been perfect until Delon arrived. Jazz quartet playing Chet Baker. Waiters in white jackets carrying silver trays. Women in Dior and Chanel, men in perfectly tailored linen suits. The scent of Gauloise's cigarettes mixing with jasmine and expensive perfume. Saint Tropez in August was where French cinema came to play, to be seen, to seduce and be seduced. And Brigitte Bardot was the undisputed queen, 28 years old. Blonde hair that photographers worshipped. That pout that had launched a sexual revolution. The woman who made and God created woman 6 years earlier and proven that God had, in fact, created at least one perfect specimen. She moved through her own party like she owned not just the villa but the entire concept of desire itself. Every man at the party wanted her. She knew it. She'd built a career on it. Used it. Weaponized it. But tonight she wanted only one man. Alain Delon arrived at 11 p.m. Not fashionably late. Strategically late. Let the party build. Let the anticipation grow. Then enter like it was a film premiere and he was the star everyone paid to see. 27 years old. Dark hair slicked back. Ice blue eyes that cut through a crowded room. Wearing a white dinner jacket that probably cost more than most people's cars. The face that was already being called the most beautiful in European cinema. The male equivalent of Bardot herself. When he walked through the doors onto the terrace overlooking the sea, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Women turned. Men assessed. Bardot, holding court near the infinity pool, went completely still. Because here is what everyone at that party understood. Brigitte Bardot and Alain Delon were France's two most powerful weapons in the war for international cinema dominance. Beauty so extreme it became almost abstract. Star power so concentrated it bent reality around them. And they'd been circling each other for 2 years. At parties. At premieres. At private dinners where the air between them crackled with possibility and danger. Delon knew what he was walking into. He'd been engaged to Romy Schneider for 4 years, that relationship fraying at the edges from his affairs and ambition. Bardot was married to Jacques Charrier, that marriage already dead, just waiting for burial. Neither of them was available. Both of them were completely available. The party resumed after Delon's entrance. Surface conversations about films, roles, directors. But underneath, everyone was watching the dance. Would Bardot approach him? Would he go to her? Who would make the first move? Bardot made them wait an hour. Let the tension build. Let Delon circulate, charm other women, play the game. She watched him from across the terrace. Studied him, made her decision. At midnight, she walked straight across the terrace. Conversations parting like water before her. Reached Delon, who was talking to a producer about his next film. Put her hand on his arm. Leaned in close enough that he could smell her perfume, something custom-made, something no other woman in the world wore. I need to speak with you, she said. Not asking, informing. She led him away from the party, through the villa. Out onto a private terrace that overlooked the dark Mediterranean. No one else. Just the two of them. The waves below, the stars above. Paparazzi somewhere in the distance with telephoto lenses hoping for exactly this moment. Bardot turned to face him. The playfulness gone. Replaced by something harder. More serious. I'm tired of games, Alain. Her voice low. Intimate. Dangerous. I want you, you want me, everyone knows it. So let's stop pretending. Delon said nothing. Just watched her. Waiting. Leave Romy, Bardot continued. I'll leave Jacques. We become what we're meant to be. The most powerful couple in cinema. The most beautiful. The most famous. Together, we're unstoppable. She moved closer, close enough to kiss. Close enough that Delon could feel the heat coming off her skin in the Mediterranean night. But I need to know you're serious, she whispered. So choose me or your career. Because if you choose me, your career becomes ours. Everything we do together. We share the spotlight. We share the fame. We share everything. Her eyes locked on his. Not pleading. Demanding. You can't have both, Alain. You can't have me and your solo stardom, so choose, right now. Me or your ambition. And everyone who'd followed them with their eyes. Everyone watching from the party through the windows. Everyone who understood what was happening. They all waited for his answer. To understand why this moment mattered. Why this wasn't just another celebrity seduction at another St. Tropez party. You need to understand what Brigitte Bardot and Alain Delon were to each other. Not lovers. Not friends. Something more dangerous than both. They were mirrors. Perfect, terrifying mirrors. They'd met in 1960 at the Cannes Film Festival. Bardot was already a global phenomenon. And God-created woman had made her the most famous actress on the planet. Her face sold magazines in 20 countries. Her body had redefined what cinema could show, what women could be, what sexuality looked like on screen. She was 26 years old and had already been married twice to Roger Vadim, the director who'd created her image, and to Jacques Charrier, an actor whose career had evaporated the moment he became Brigitte Bardot's husband. Delon was 25, rising fast but not there yet. Purple Noon had just been released. Rocco and his brothers was making critics pay attention. He was beautiful, everyone agreed on that, but beauty in men was different than beauty in women. It could be a handicap. It could make people not take you seriously. Delon was fighting to prove he was more than a pretty face, while simultaneously using that pretty face to open every door in European cinema. At Cannes, they'd been introduced at a party much like tonight's. Photographers went insane. The two most beautiful people in French cinema finally in the same frame. Bardot in a white dress that photographed like sculpture. Delon in a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of classical painting. They talked for 20 minutes. Polite, charming, professional. And everyone around them felt it, that pull, that charge, that sense that these two people operated on a frequency most humans couldn't access. Bardot had been married to Charrier for less than a year. Already pregnant with their son, already deeply unhappy. She looked at Delon and saw what she'd been looking for her entire life. A man beautiful enough to stand beside her without disappearing. Someone who could match her wattage. Delon had been engaged to Romy Schneider for 2 years. Deeply in love. Also deeply terrified of commitment. Also deeply aware that Romy wanted marriage and stability and all the things that felt like cages to a man whose ambition had no ceiling. He looked at Bardot and saw danger. Intoxicating, career-destroying danger. They didn't sleep together that night. Didn't even kiss. Just shook hands. Smiled for cameras, went their separate ways. But something had been planted. Over the next 2 years, they kept running into each other. Film festivals, industry parties, awards ceremonies. Always with other people, always in public. Always maintaining perfect propriety, while their eyes said things their mouths never would. Bardot would watch Delon across crowded rooms. Study how he moved. How he controlled every conversation without seeming to try. How women melted around him the same way men melted around her. She recognized herself in him. That weaponization of beauty. That understanding that desire could be currency if you were smart enough to spend it correctly. Delon would watch Bardot hold court. See how she commanded attention effortlessly. How she could make a room stop breathing just by laughing. How she'd built an empire on her own terms in an industry designed to control women. He recognized himself in her. That hunger, that refusal to be diminished. That willingness to be loved and hated in equal measure as long as you were never ignored. But Delon also watched what happened to the men around Bardot. Vadim, who'd created her, had been left behind when she outgrew his vision. Charrier, who'd married her, was now nothing, a forgotten actor whose name only appeared in print as Bardot's husband. Every man who got close to Bardot seemed to shrink. Seemed to lose definition, seemed to become satellite to her son. And Delon refused to be anyone's satellite. His relationship with Romy was complicated. He loved her, but he also resented her sometimes. Resented how she wanted him to be faithful when fidelity felt like limitation. Resented how she wanted marriage when marriage felt like surrender. Resented how she wanted him to choose her over his career when his career was the only thing that had ever been truly his. Romy was brilliant, talented, beautiful in a different way than Bardot, softer, more vulnerable, more real. But Romy wanted partnership, wanted equal footing. Wanted Delon to meet her halfway. Bardot wanted conquest, wanted possession. Wanted Delon to surrender completely or not at all. By 1962, both Delon and Bardot were at crossroads. Bardot's marriage to Charrier was dying publicly. Tabloids speculating about affairs, about divorce, about whether the world's most desired woman could actually sustain a relationship. She was tired of being seen as incapable of love, tired of failed marriages, tired of men who couldn't handle her power. Delon's engagement to Romy was fraying. His affairs were poorly hidden, her patience was running out. The press was starting to turn on him, calling him beautiful but heartless, talented but cruel. He needed to decide. Commit to Romy and the domestic life she wanted, or commit to becoming the biggest star in European cinema. What nobody knew was that Bardot had planned this moment. This party, this ultimatum. She'd invited Delon specifically. Made sure Romy wasn't invited. Made sure the guest list was full of people who'd spread the story. Made sure the paparazzi knew exactly where to position themselves for photos. This wasn't spontaneous romance. This was a calculated move by a woman who'd built her career on understanding exactly how desire, power, and publicity intersected. Bardot had decided Alain Delon was the one man who could match her. The one man beautiful enough, ambitious enough, strong enough to stand beside her without disappearing. Together, they'd be unstoppable. The ultimate power couple. Beauty and beauty. Star and star. She'd spent 2 years watching him. Studying him. Waiting for the right moment. And tonight, with his relationship failing, with his career at the inflection point between rising star and superstar, with the whole industry watching to see what he'd become, tonight was that moment. She'd pulled him onto the terrace, made her offer, given her ultimatum. And she was absolutely certain he'd say yes. Because every man always said yes to Brigitte Bardot. Every single one. She'd never been rejected. Not once. Not ever. Men left wives for her, destroyed careers for her, gave up everything for even the possibility of her. So when she looked at Alain Delon on that terrace and said, "Choose, me or your career," she already knew his answer, or thought she did. But what Bardot didn't understand, what she couldn't understand because it had never happened to her, was that Alain Delon had spent his entire life watching people try to own him. Foster families who saw him as obligation. The military that tried to break him. The film industry that wanted to control him. Even Romy, who loved him but wanted him to be different than he was. And he'd learned something crucial. The moment you let someone else define your worth, you stop being yourself and become their reflection. Bardot was offering him the world. Fame. Sex. Power. Everything most men dreamed of. But she was also offering him a cage. Golden. Beautiful. Seductive. But still a cage. And Alain Delon had sworn he'd never be caged again. Not by family. Not by love. Not even by the most beautiful woman in the world. On the terrace, with the Mediterranean dark below and the party glittering behind them, Brigitte Bardot waited for Alain Delon to say yes. Inside the villa, 100 people pretended to continue their conversations while watching the windows. Everyone knew what was happening. In the world of French cinema, there were no secrets, only performances of discretion. When Bardot led Delon away from the party, it wasn't subtle. It was a declaration. The jazz quartet kept playing. Champagne kept flowing. But the real entertainment was happening on that terrace. A photographer from Paris Match, positioned in a boat offshore with a telephoto lens, was getting the shots that would run in next week's issue. Bardot and Delon silhouetted against the villa lights, her hand on his chest, his face unreadable. The most beautiful people in France in a moment that looked exactly like seduction. But it wasn't seduction, it was negotiation. "Imagine it," Bardot said, her voice low and urgent. "We make a film together. The studio gives us anything we want, any director, any budget. We'd be unstoppable, your beauty and mine, your talent and mine. We'd own European cinema." She moved closer, her body almost touching his, not accidentally. Everything Bardot did with her body was strategic. "I can give you things Romy never could," she continued. "Access, power. I know everyone who matters. One word from me and doors open that you're still knocking on. Together, we don't just make films, we become the film industry." Delon listened. Didn't move away. Didn't move closer. Just stood there, his ice blue eyes studying her face the way you'd study a beautiful weapon. "And personally," Bardot's voice dropped to a whisper, "what we could be together, Alain, you know it. You felt it every time we're in the same room. This pull, this recognition. We're the same species. Everyone else is just less." It was true. Delon couldn't deny it. There was something intoxicating about being with someone who understood exactly what it was like to move through the world looking like this. To have your face be currency. To have strangers think they own pieces of you because they've seen you on screen. Romy loved him, but she didn't understand this. She was beautiful, yes, but her beauty was accessible, relatable. She could walk down a street and have people smile at her warmly. Delon and Bardot couldn't do that. When they walked down streets, people stopped breathing. That level of beauty isolated you, made you a different kind of creature. And here was Bardot, offering him someone who understood, who lived in the same golden cage. Who could match him frame for frame, headline for headline, scandal for scandal? It was tempting. God, it was tempting. What about Romy? Delon asked finally, his first words since they'd stepped onto the terrace. Bardot waved her hand dismissively. You're already leaving her. Everyone knows it. Your affairs. Your distance. You love her the way you love a comfortable coat nice to have, but you've outgrown it. And Charrier? Already gone? I'm filing for divorce next month. My lawyers are preparing everything. I'm free, Alain. Completely free. The question is, are you brave enough to be free with me? She was good. Delon had to give her that, framing it as courage, as bravery. Making refusal seem like cowardice. But Delon understood something Bardot didn't. Something she could understand because she'd been in the sun for so long she'd forgotten what it was like to be in orbit. He'd watched this story before. Vadin, the brilliant director who'd created her image in And God Created Woman. Where was he now? Making smaller films. Living in Bardot's shadow. Forever known as the man who discovered Bardot rather than as his own artist. And Charrier, an actor with real talent who'd made the mistake of marrying her. His career had evaporated. Not because he wasn't good. Because nobody could see past Brigitte Bardot's husband. He'd become an appendage, a footnote. Bardot was offering Delon the world, but she was offering it on her terms. In her orbit. Under her sun. And Delon had spent his entire life clawing his way from nothing, from foster homes. From poverty, from being unwanted to become somebody. Not somebody's boyfriend. Not somebody's co-star. Somebody. He looked at Bardot. Really looked at her. Saw past the blonde hair and the pout and the body that had redefined desire. Saw the calculation, the expectation, the absolute certainty that he would surrender. Because every man did. Every single man who'd ever stood where Delon was standing had crumbled. Had said yes. Had given her everything she wanted because refusing Brigitte Bardot seemed impossible. But Alain Delon had made a career out of doing the impossible. You're offering me the chance to be half of the most powerful couple in cinema, he said slowly. But I don't want to be half of anything. I want to be whole. By myself. On my own terms. Bardot's smile faltered. Just for a second. You're being ridiculous. 2 stars together are more powerful than one alone. Not if one star gets eclipsed. You think I'd eclipse you? I know you would, Delon said. Not cruel. Just factual. Not because you're bigger than me. Because you got there first. I'd always be Bardot's man, never my own. And I've worked too hard to become Alain Delon to become Brigitte Bardot's boyfriend. Bardot's face changed. The seduction vanished. Replaced by something harder. Colder. So that's your answer? You're choosing your precious ego over us? I'm choosing the over us, Delon corrected. The same way you'd choose you if the situation were reversed. Her eyes flashed. You're making a mistake, maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Inside the villa, people had stopped pretending not to watch. The terrace was fully visible through the windows. Bardot and Delon standing close. Her body language shifting from seduction to anger. His remaining calm. Everyone knew something was happening. Something important. Bardot took a step back, studying Delon like she was seeing him for the first time. Really seeing him, not as conquest, not as mirror, but as obstacle. As the first man who'd ever said no. You'll regret this, she said quietly. I'll regret a lot of things in my life, Delon replied. But becoming someone's satellite won't be one of them. He looked into her eyes, saw the fury there, the disbelief, the wounded vanity of a woman who'd never been refused. And he said 3 words that ended the conversation, ended the possibility, ended whatever they could have been. I choose me. 3 words. Simple, final, devastating. Brigitte Bardot stood there on the terrace, the Mediterranean breeze moving her hair, her face frozen in an expression nobody at the party had ever seen before. Not anger. Not sadness. Pure, complete shock. Because this didn't happen. Men didn't say no to Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot said no to men. That was the natural order. That was how the world worked. You choose. You? Her voice barely audible. Trying to process words that didn't make sense. Like hearing a language she didn't speak. I choose me, Delon repeated. Calmer now. Settled into his decision. I choose my career, my independence, my own name. I won't be half of us, Brigitte. I need to be whole of me. You're insane, her voice rising now. Do you understand what I'm offering you? What we could be? I understand perfectly. You're offering me the chance to become the most famous accessory in European cinema. Beautiful, successful, but always yours. Always in your shadow. Always Bardot's man. That's not— It is, Delon interrupted. Gentle but firm. Look at Vedem, look at Charrier. Look at every man who's gotten close to you. Where are they now? Not beside you as equals. Behind you. Beneath you. Forgotten. They were weak. Maybe you're so bright that anyone standing next to you disappears. It's not your fault. It's just physics. The sun doesn't mean to burn the planets. It just does. Bardot's eyes were blazing now. So what, you're going to run back to Romy? Play house with a woman who wants you to be less than you are? No, Delon said quietly. I'm probably going to leave Romy too. Not for you. For me, because I'm not ready to be anyone's. Not yours. Not hers. I need to become who I'm supposed to become. Alone. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Maybe. But it's my stupidity. He smiled slightly. Not cruel. Almost sad. You and I, Brigitte, were too similar. Two egos this size can't share the same sky. One of us would have to dim, and I won't do it. And you couldn't do it even if you wanted to. He took a step back, creating distance. Making it clear the conversation was ending. I respect you, he continued. I'm attracted to you. Part of me even wonders what we could have been, but I know what we would have been. And I choose differently. Bardot stood there, arms crossed now, defensive. Her entire body language changed from seduction to armor. You're going to regret this, Alain. When you're 40 and your career is fading and you're alone, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that I offered you everything and you were too proud to take it. You're probably right, Delon admitted. But I'd rather regret what I didn't do than become something I'm not. He looked back toward the party. Through the windows, 100 faces quickly turned away, pretending they hadn't been watching. But everyone had been watching. Everyone had seen. Good night, Brigitte. Delon said it like he was ending a pleasant dinner conversation. Polite. Final. He turned and walked back toward the villa. Alain Bardot's voice stopped him. He turned back. She stood there, silhouetted against the dark sea, the most desired woman in the world, and for just a moment she looked vulnerable, almost human. Was any of it real? She asked quietly. These 2 years. The way we looked at each other. Was I wrong about that too? Delon considered lying, considered being kind, decided on truth instead. It was real, he said. But real doesn't mean right. He walked back through the villa. Past the whispers that started the moment he entered. Past the stares. Past the judgment and speculation and gossip that would fill French tabloids for months. He walked to the front entrance past the valets to his car. Didn't look back, didn't hesitate. He got in his Alfa Romeo, started the engine, and drove away from Brigitte Bardot, from the most powerful offer he'd ever receive, from the safe path to guaranteed stardom. He drove toward uncertainty, toward solitude, toward the possibility of becoming exactly who he wanted to become, on his own terms, answerable to nobody. Behind him, on the terrace, Brigitte Bardot stood alone for the first time in years. Rejected. Refused. Stunned into silence. The party continued inside, but everyone knew something had shifted. The most beautiful woman in the world had just been told no. By the only man beautiful enough to stand beside her. And that rejection, that single moment of one massive ego refusing to surrender to another, would change both their destinies forever. But neither of them knew that yet. All they knew was that the game was over. And nobody had won. The next morning, every newspaper in France ran the story. Bardot rejected. Delon chooses solo career. Paparazzi photos of them on the terrace. Her hand on his chest, his face impassive. The moment before everything changed, the press framed it as scandal. Another Bardot romance gone wrong. Another beautiful man who couldn't handle her. But people inside the industry understood what had really happened. For the first time in Brigitte Bardot's career, someone had chosen themselves over her. And it liberated both of them. Delon left Romy Schneider 6 months later. Not for another woman, for exactly what he told Bardot. For himself. He threw himself into work with singular focus. 1963. The Leopard, with Visconti, the role that proved he could act, not just look beautiful. 1967. Le Samouraï, the film that made him an icon, the definition of cool, the face of French cinema's golden age. He became what he'd wanted to become. Not Bardot's boyfriend, not Romy's husband. Alain Delon, complete, untouchable, his own brand of perfection. He worked for 40 more years, never let anyone define him, never became anyone's satellite. Made films on his own terms with directors he respected, building a legacy that belonged to him alone. But he was also alone. Relationships failed. Marriages ended. He had children but struggled with intimacy. Because when you choose yourself that completely, when you refuse to dim for anyone, you spend a lot of time in solitude. Bardot's career continued too. She remained the world's most desired woman. Made brilliant films. Contempt, with Godard in 1963. Viva Maria. In 1965, every film a success, every appearance a sensation. But something had changed. After Delon's rejection, she stopped trying to build partnerships. Stopped looking for equals. If the most beautiful man in France wouldn't choose her, what was the point? She had affairs. Married again. Divorced again. But her relationships became shorter, more disposable. She grew increasingly isolated. Increasingly cynical about love, about men, about the possibility of finding someone who could match her. 1973. Brigitte Bardot announced her retirement from cinema. She was 39 years old, at the height of her beauty. Still bankable, still desired, but tired of performing. Tired of being Brigitte Bardot. She spent the rest of her life advocating for animal rights. Built a foundation, saved thousands of animals. Found purpose outside of beauty, outside of cinema, outside of the spotlight that had defined her. But she never found what she'd offered Delon that night on the terrace. Partnership, equality, someone who could stand beside her without disappearing. Years later, in a 1985 interview, Bardot was asked about her greatest regret. Alain Delon, she said simply, not because he rejected me, but because he was right to. We would have destroyed each other. Two stars that bright can't orbit each other. One has to burn out. Delon was asked the same question in 1998. Brigitte Bardot's Party, 1962, he said. Not because I regret my choice, but because I sometimes wonder what we could have been if we'd both been different people. Less ambitious, less proud, less ourselves. He paused. But then we wouldn't have been us. And being us was the point. They both achieved everything they wanted. Bardot became a legend. Delon became an icon. Both proved that beauty, combined with talent, could create immortality. But they also both spent decades alone. Successful but solitary, admired but untouched. Proving that some people are too bright to share the same sky. The choice Delon made at Bardot's Party wasn't wrong, it wasn't right. It was honest. He chose ambition over love, independence over partnership, self over us. And he lived with that choice, successful, legendary, and alone for the next 60 years. Some people are meant to shine solo. The question is, are you willing to pay the price for that light? What would you choose, the chance to be half of something legendary, or the freedom to be whole of something uncertain?